Today, I'm going to share with you genius AI prompts that 99% of writers don't know. And stay with me all the way to the end because I'm going to share the best prompt first and the second best one last. If you click away, your AI might just decide to write a rom-com Twilight spinoff about you running away from your responsibility, just like your third grade English teacher, Miss Rosenberry, always said would happen. Nobody wants that. Prompt number 1 is the temporal scale shifting technique. Write this scene from 3 perspectives, as it would have been written in 1940, how it would be written today, and how it might be written in 2124. Watch how your AI starts giving you unique plots instead of another copy-paste noir detective. If we're going to put each one of these to the test, here I am in ChatGPT. I'm going to choose the advanced reasoning mode and hit go. In 1940, he stepped into my office smelling like cheap scotch and regrets. It's pretty good. The ceiling fan sputtered overhead. My cigarette ash dangled, threatening a sad end on the scuffed floor. So far, I'm really liking 1940. Let's go down to today. The client sashayed in wearing overpriced sneakers and a grimace I knew too well. Her phone buzzed nonstop, like even it wanted to get out of here. She told me a fancy ring was missing from her influencer boss's house. Perfect. Now I'd have to rub elbows with that crowd. Okay, getting some modern vibes there. Now, 2024. Let's see what it says. They beamed themselves into my office by hollow projector, carrying a contraband data chip and a bad attitude. Said it had disappeared from the Museum of Old Tech. So old, in fact, nobody cared until a rogue band of archivists decided to profit. I hopped on my hover bike and scanned half the city's neon skyline, checking the usual suspects. Now, you can write this whole story, write this specific scene from 3 different perspectives. It doesn't have to be based on time. It can be based on a character's POV, based on an emotion. It's really cool to be able to get these alternate perspectives. Prompt number 2. It's called multi-modal conceptual mapping. Instead of just describing your character's emotions, try this. Describe this character's emotional journey as if it were a piece of classical music, an abstract painting, a mathematical equation. Suddenly, your character isn't just sad. They're a decreasing exponential function of hope with random bursts of major key optimism. Let's describe the character's emotional journey as if it were first a piece of classical music. Her journey begins pianissimo, a gentle violin motif that trembles with uncertainty. Slowly, the cellos enter, adding a melancholic warmth that reflects her hidden longing. Then, at first imperceptibly, the tempo quickens, an allegro of flickering hopes and growing resolve. Woodwinds swirl above, representing moments of fleeting joy, while the brass section underscores the weight of her anxieties. So, as an abstract painting, a stark canvas opens with a single hesitant brushstroke of pale blue, the faint echo of her quiet fears. Splatters of deep burgundy soon follow, each drop capturing the sudden pulses of longing in her heart. Her emotional journey can be mapped as a function where T represents time and E represents her emotional intensity. And we get that. Captures the oscillations between her moments of self-doubt and bursts of hopes, ever shifting yet rhythmic. If you thought that was cool, check out number 3. Prompt number 3, the consciousness bridge. This one's for when you want your story to be deep. Philosophy major at 3 a.m. deep. Does time even exist deep? Instead of write chapter 1, try process the scene through pure emotional instinct, historical literary context, meta-awareness of storytelling trope. Watch your AI suddenly write something that doesn't read like it was copied from every YA novel ever. Since this prompting strategy requires a story, I had AI, in this case ChatGPT, write a story about 2 guys who find a magic app on their cell phone that grants wishes, but each wish is a massive energy drain on the phone. The phone's about to die when a group of bullies approach them. So let's process this scene through pure emotional instinct. Jake and Winston panic and adrenaline fuel every action. There's an electric sense of dread. So we're just going over all of the emotions in this scene. The rush of terror mingles with awe as the illusions take shape. Relief floods when the bullies flee. All right, so we're getting all the highlights of the emotion. Now let's process for historical literary context. This is interesting. I think this could help us create a better scene by knowing the context of the type of scenes that we're writing. Stories of magical wish granting objects trace back to folklore traditions across the globe, from the classic genie in a lamp in Arabian Nights to the cautionary charms in European fairy tales. Here, the smartphone takes on the role of the ancient talisman, reimagining an age old concept in a modern setting. This library scene exists in the lineage of narratives where an otherworldly intervention shifts the power balance between the bullies and the victims. Yet, it also reflects 20th century pulp and comic traditions where unexpected powers allow underdogs, the two kind of nerdy guys, to triumph, threading a universal lesson about hidden strengths or technology, enabling the powerless to fight back. Now, let's talk about the meta awareness of storytelling tropes. The bully showdown is trope number one. The magic MacGuffin. The wish granting phone functions like a modern MacGuffin, an object that drives the plot by holding a unique power that both heroes and villains might covet. Jake and Winston fit the archetype of the resourceful geeks who, lacking physical prowess, compensate with intelligence and some fantastical edge. Their triumph over the bullies is a perennial wish fulfillment scenario in young adult or adventure fiction. High stakes resource management. The rapidly dwindling phone battery injects tension, an echo of a ticking clock like scenario. The device's power, like the magic lamp's limited wishes, becomes a finite resource whose usage must be carefully managed. That's going to cause all kinds of problems. Maybe the phone will lose power at the worst possible time in the worst possible situation. I think that could make for an interesting part of the story. Speaking of tropes, let's go to prompt number 4, which I'm calling the meta learning protocol. This one's like Inception, but for book writing. Instead of asking for a plot, you're asking for a system to generate plots, plural. For example, you might say, create a framework for generating a unique fantasy world by identifying common fantasy tropes, systematically subverting each one, testing the new concepts against reader expectations, and evolving the world based on internal logic. We'll just go with the example that I gave in the prompt, and that is coming up with unique fantasy worlds. So here we've created a structured framework for generating fantasy worlds that pay homage to common tropes, but also subvert them in fresh, thought provoking ways. You can do this with your setting, with your characters, with your plots. So, number one, we have identify common fantasy tropes: the chosen one, ancient prophecy, elves, dwarfs, orcs, familiar races, magic as a mystical force, quest narrative. So now we're going to systematically subvert each trope. The chosen one is now replaced by the overlooked many. Maybe the chosen character is actually detrimental. Maybe instead of one hero, a group of ordinary people collectively make the difference. The Dark Lord is now a collective antagonist. Maybe the Dark Lord isn't a misunderstood hero from another perspective, maybe even another timeline. We can use non-Western or hybrid cultures. Maybe there's a misinterpreted prophecy instead of an ancient prophecy. Maybe there's different types of cultural reinterpretation and representation. Maybe magic is a scientific discipline in this story. Maybe there's living artifacts, cursed artifacts. Instead of a quest narrative, maybe there's a personal or community driven story, or even an anti quest. Let's use the same prompt to develop a plot. A paper trail of the invisible bureaucrat. Plot 1, subverting the tropes. A lone hero. Now we have a mild mannered bureaucrat. An all powerful conspiracy. Now we have a decentralized rumor mill. High stakes ticking clock. Now we have a slow burn procedural danger. Clear moral lines. Ambiguous red tape. Revenge motivation. Now maybe there's reluctant duty. We're evolving the world with internal logic. The stakes rise as certain factions see the protagonist as a threat because she might blow the lid on everything. So we have a whistleblower type thriller here. All right. So here's the high concept hook. What if the greatest threat to freedom wasn't a single tyrant, but tens of thousands of minor procedural errors accumulating in a silent coup? And the only person who can stop it is an unassuming clerk who found a discrepancy in the logs. The collective detective. So instead of a lone hero, we have a crowd of unlikely allies. Fractured cells operating in public. Chaotic swarm of clues. A moral crowd source. Collective need for safety. Let's see what we got here in the plot. What if the greatest weapon against a looming threat was not a single hero's skill, but the vast, messy power of a communal hive mind? And the final puzzle piece could come from the most unexpected forum member. And this is a way to get past generic ideas and open your mind to new creative thinking. Protagonist isn't a hyper trained operative. He is someone who changes his name and persona out of necessity, constantly fleeing from unknown pursuers. He has no real identity, so he can't rely on the usual heroic reputation or superior's resources. Now we have a collective of black market memory brokers. Maybe. Instead of a monolithic secret society, there is an underground market for stolen, erased, or fabricated personal histories. Criminals buy new identities while powerful elites remove or alter theirs. We have a dread of losing oneself. The real danger is that the protagonist's true past might be bought by someone else. There's a gray zone. The marketplace of stolen identities creates moral gray areas. Some people buy new pasts for their legitimate survival needs. Others do it to conceal crimes. Instead of revenge motivation, there's an existential quest. The protagonist isn't seeking revenge, but searching for the truth of who he actually is. What if your existence could vanish because someone else purchased your identity? And the only way to reclaim yourself was to descend into a criminal underworld where truth, memory, and records are all for sale. I want to read this book. I want to watch this movie or this TV series. And now we get to prompt number 5. I call the recursive self-evaluation loop. This one's one of my favorites because it makes the AI overthink everything, just like every writer ever. Instead of just generating a scene, write the scene, then explain why it's cliche, then rewrite it to fix those issues, then identify new problems, then make one final version. This allows the AI to evaluate itself, fix its own problems, and give you a better scene in the end. I told you I was going to save the best for last, so I'm going to ask the AI to write a pretty dramatic scene. And this is a scene where a woman reluctantly admits to cheating with her ex a year ago when she first found out about her terminal diagnosis. Her boyfriend has been taking care of her for a year, and they've been together for 3 years. She's recently gotten worse, and hospice was called in. His whole family's there. Her whole family's there. Everybody hears her confession. He's embarrassed. He's angry, but he's also sad and guilty. Angela grips the armrest of her recliner while everyone in the living room stares at her. Her breath sounds like she's been running a marathon. Her boyfriend, Carter, stands behind her with a wet cloth in his hand, looking tense. His mother and father are on the couch. Angela's mom leans against the wall, arms crossed. Every eye zeroes in on Angela. She coughs before speaking. I'm sorry, I did something bad. It was a year ago. She can feel Carter stiffen. When I found out about my diagnosis, I couldn't handle it. It was my ex. It happened once. Carter's eyes flash. The cloth drops from his hand. His dad's jaw drops and his mom's eyes narrow. Angela tries to keep talking, but the words stick like glue in her throat. Carter steps back, the anger on his face giving way to deep sadness. He looks down at her frame in the recliner, ready to comfort her, yet feeling betrayed. She pleads, I wish I could take it back. I'm so ashamed. Carter's voice quivers. I've done everything for you this year. He glances at his family. We've been together for 3 years, and when you got sick, Tears threaten to spill from the corners of his eyes, but his jaw goes rigid. People love soap opera drama, so I'm not really sure that is a problem. In the rewritten one, though, it's a little more quiet. It's probably a little more realistic that she would confess to him privately. The realism goes up for sure. In this section, there are new problems, which the AI caught. It's still leaning on a terminal illness revealed as an emotional crutch. The cheating revelation is tied up too quickly, which is not realistic. I don't think. It might be shoved under the rug in a situation like this. It's definitely lacking the rewritten one it's lacking in depth, complexity, and there needs to be an external conflict. Like other people probably need to be there because it makes the conflict worse, which is terrible in real life. Angela's bedroom is stuffy. A small fan buzzes on the nightstand. She's propped up against some pillows, breathing shallowly. Her mom stands in the doorway, arms crossed, watching as Carter settles into a chair by the bed. Her dad's footsteps click in the hall. Carter's parents are out in the living room trying to act casual. Okay, so we have people really close by. Angela glances at her mom, then at Carter. Mom, can we have a moment, please? Her mom looks worried, but she leaves quickly. Carter scoots closer. What's going on? So they're again alone. She stares at her hands. They're trembling. I can't carry this anymore. After I got my diagnosis, I was so confused. I thought if I was going to die, I might as well. She can't bring herself to finish. Carter's grip on her hand tightens. Tell me. She locks eyes with him. I cheated. He found me crying in my car outside the hospital, and it just happened. She sees Carter's face collapse in slow motion. The raw betrayal colors his cheeks red. Outside the room, the floor creaks. Angela's parents are listening, and Carter's mother have gravitated to the door. Their silhouette looms. Carter rubs his face. His eyes fill with tears. We've been together for 3 years, Angela. I've been here every day. He can't finish. Her mom gasps from the hallway. His mother slips in, about to say something, but stops. Angela feels the sting of their stares. I'm so sorry, she whispers. I was weak. I felt scared that you'd watch me fade away, and I couldn't stand losing you, so I slept with my ex. Wow. So I went and I messed up everything. Carter gets up, pacing a little. His hurt is palpable. I should walk out. Part of me wants to. He shoots a glare at his mom, silently warning her not to speak. Then he looks at Angela's hollow cheeks and watery eyes. But what good would that do? You're dying, and I hate that I can't just hate you. She breaks into tears, quiet and drained. The families hover awkwardly. Carter leans in, pressing his forehead to hers. I'm so mad, he whispers. But I still care about you. His voice is raw. Angela clings to that. They both know the clock is ticking. No one else says a word. Wow, that was actually very emotional. And I really like this one a lot more than the first one, even. I like the first one. The second one I didn't really like, but I got it. It was more realistic. But this one just gave me much more of an emotional reaction. And there you have it. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button like your protagonist smashes their internal barriers to growth. Drop a comment below with your favorite prompt technique. Could be one of these or something else. Or just keyboard smash. I'll know what you mean. Thanks for watching.